Hello, this is Johnny Henson, Professor Poole out of Goodyear, Arizona. The sheet you're looking at right now is a score sheet. It's going to have all 10 of the major shots we're going to cover today. It's going to have places for you to mark your makes and misses. I just want everybody to know this is part of my level 2 course. First thing we're going to cover is short banks. You're going to be mainly trying to shoot the shots that you have the most trouble with. And so every one of these shots are going to be difficult shots, or difficult if you're not practicing them. So we're going to start out with shooting maybe 10 short banks. Then we're going to move on and we're going to do basically 10 long banks. And so, when you shoot, you need to shoot short shots. You also need to shoot long shots. It shouldn't matter if it's a bank, the length of the table or across the table. You should be practicing them both equally and get proficient at both of them. So you got the short banks and the long banks. I like to start out with banks because that's something you run into all the time. Now this is going to be caroms. This is going to be playing an object ball off of another ball to make that ball, And once you start practicing these type of shots, you're going to see them all the time. In fact, you may take this one off of shooting a long shot or a thin cut or something like that because your percentages are going to be higher. Another thing you run into too is you run into shooting a shot off the rail in a kind of a rail first carom. And you run into these all the time, These are very common shots you run into. Once you master these shots, you won't hesitate. You'll just say, hey, I shoot, 50 of those every week. If you do this routine 5 times a week, you're going to shoot 50 of those every week, minimum, So anyway, so this would be like, shooting an object ball into off of a ball off the rail. That would be a rail first carom. Another thing I practice too a little bit is I practice, hitting my cue ball off of a ball and pocketing a ball. Don't practice this probably as much because it's a much easier shot. I feel like I'm more challenged by trying to hit an object ball in a perfect spot as opposed to just my cue ball. So here we're going on to some short combinations, and then we have some long combinations. So, here's an example where I kind of got off to one side to make it a little bit more difficult. And so, on these short combinations or long combinations, you're going to find short combinations pretty easy, but longer combinations are a lot harder, Now we're going to move on to short kicks, and you're going to run into this, especially in like 9-ball and things. You're going to have to end up being a pretty good cue ball kicker. You want to make sure you're hitting rail first off that rail. And the progression is going to be short kicks, long kicks. To kind of give you an idea, if you just remember the kind of shots that you're shooting here, most of these are indirect, Short banks, long banks, caroms, rail first caroms, short combinations, long combinations, then side kicks, and then you move on to long kicks, okay? Now do your best to try to hit rail first on these kicks. That takes the scratch completely out of play. So when you're actually playing a game, you're actually not going to lose because you're going to make the ball, but you're not going to scratch and lose a game. So when you're practicing kicks, especially, you want to make sure you're doing your best. I almost consider if it don't go rail first, it's a bad shot. Try to consciously go rail first. Now this is another, I call it drawing off of object balls, and where I'm just really trying to control my cue ball coming off of a ball. Technically this is a carom, but because you can do different spin and stuff with your cue ball, I look at this as a real weapon. Now the trick to this is not just to make the ball, the cue ball off that ball to make a ball. The trick is to leave yourself another shot. So when you're practicing these, try to throw some balls out on the table, make it more difficult that so that you can kind of get into game situations. Now this is a kind of a double kiss off the rail. I practiced this when I was a tournament player. It was surprising to me how many times this came into play. But this, you have to be pretty precise on these. And so basically, the more you practice this stuff, the better you're going to get at it. Okay. Now, the last drill that I do is 3-ball. If you think about it, at any given time, you're within a 3-ball pattern. The ball you're shooting at, the ball you're leaving, to take you to the third ball. So no matter at any given time in the game, there's the ball you're shooting at, the ball you're trying to leave, that's going to take you to the third ball. That's why you want to practice 3-ball run patterns every day. So just to kind of give you an overview, you shot short banks, long banks, caroms, rail first caroms, short combinations, long combinations, side kicks, long kicks, drawing the cue ball off of a ball, and 3-ball runs. If you get to where you're shooting these like lights out, you're going to be hard to beat. Have a good day. Please consider being one of my students in Goodyear, Arizona. And please like and subscribe and keep me motivated. You have a nice day.